field scanning study we have done on Civic Tech using ACM digital library. So here is the method we have used to do our literature search. We relied on ACM digital library for the search because many of these Civic Tech projects have been done by computer scientists. And ACM digital library is indeed the database for us to find such computer science works. Right, so we use the civic as a keyword in title, abstract, and author keywords to search through ACM full text collections. We didn't set a starting date, but we set our ending dates around July in 2021. So the search generated 496 outputs after excluding short papers. Papers are 7 pages or less, and the inappropriate articles. We ended up with, lastly, 224 articles in the corpus. We also have developed a code book with multiple codes that we like to code out of these 224 articles. So we have 2 graduate students, one majoring computer science and one in social science, were trained to perform this coding. The training was completed on a random subset of the articles, and the coders have gone through 3 rounds of training sessions. After resolving the disagreements and revising the codebook, we eventually reached a satisfactory intercoder reliability, calculated as previous alpha. So I'm going to be quick in summarizing some of the key findings from this literature review. First, in terms of the publications, the publications on Civic Tech have spanned over a period of 21 years, with an average of 4 papers per year. The first article appeared in 2001, and in 2012, there was a significant jump in the number of papers from 3 to 12, right? And the numbers have kept in double digits since then. Well, starting from 2022, we see review papers and critical essays. So these signal that the field has probably developed into a certain stage of maturity. The top 5 publishing venues of Civic Tech works are basically computer-human interaction, CHI, computer-supported cooperative work, CSCW, Conference on Digital Governance Research, DG.O, Conference on Designing Interactive Systems, CIS, and Conference on Theory and Practice of Electronic Governance, ISGov. The remaining 57 venues only publish an average of 2 articles per venue. So we can see that from the beginning throughout the development of Civic Tech works in the computer science field, there is always a governance perspective in Civic Tech works. All right, now let me share with you what kind of issues these Civic Tech projects have worked on. Issues here refer to problems and challenges related to civic matters. Okay? So the range of issues we found is quite large. But the most frequent used issue is to address democracy and participation in political decision making. There are over 40% of studies that focus on that. The second largest category of issues focus on public services and governance. So these are basically providing services to the public and involving public in policy making. The third highest number of issues refers to how we can use technologies to disseminate useful information and fight fake news. Following that, the categories of urban planning and neighborhood, they basically focus on helping local communities to address local matters. Well, there are also some specific issue areas such as education, minority groups and accessibility, sustainability and climate change, as well as crime, safety, and disasters, right? So these are basically the issues. Following that, I'm going to share with you the so-called type of technologies that have been used to address these civic issues. Well, existing works in the field, as you can see, that often focus on taking advantage of web-based platforms, websites, and web applications or nudges you can implement, insert into your web platforms. Well, interestingly, following these web-based applications, we see social media and forums being widely used or adapted to be used for solving civic matters. We also found mobile applications to be quite popular among civic techs. Another very interesting category of technologies that we didn't expect to see is actually physical devices or so-called public displays installed in locations. So the computer scientists want to reduce the issue of access to technology in local communities. So they put up physical devices and public displays in the community or the neighborhood itself. So the members of the neighborhood can easily access and quickly interact with these digital technologies. Since 2012, we observed another trend, what we call the data set studies. So these studies don't really develop any technologies. Instead, they use public data and analyze these public data to help understand public issues. All right, so these are basically the types of civic tech we have observed in reviewing these studies. Well, let me now try to introduce who are the funders and partners in building civic tech. As you can see from this graph, we have two colors of columns. Blue refers to funders, orange refers to partners. Government definitely is the most important sources of funds in developing civic tech, but they rarely are partners. We see foundation and universities sometimes invest in civic tech development as well. Companies, interestingly, despite how rich they are and how technological capable they are yet to be contributing a lot to the civic tech space. So it basically means that there's still a lot for commercial companies to do in order to achieve tech for good goals or their corporate social responsibility goals. Organization networks and communities are more likely to be partners, less likely to be funders. Let me continue now with civic tech designers and users. Who actually design the tech and who actually use the tech? I'm not going to go into the details, as you can see that there is a general pattern of division here. Academics and companies are the ones who develop the technology, but they are not the users. The users actually do not really contribute too much in designing the technologies. All right, now let me move to so-called the design methods or the participation mechanisms that are often used in this civic tech design. Well, depending on the participation mechanisms the studies employ, actually users or citizens can play very different roles. In design models such as user-generated design and iterative design, users are most likely to be treated as basically people who give requirements or people who share their needs with the designers. There might be a few rounds and of back and forth between the designers and the users, but most likely this kind of surveys and interviews with users are only used to review their needs, and designers are responsible for coming up with design tools and solutions to address these needs. Okay. Well, but if you look at another set of so-called design models, such as participatory design and co-design, users actually play a much more active role in that. In this kind of models, the users are treated as also experts, right, as designers are. So designers may be experts in technological tools, but users or citizens are experts who have first-hand experience and insight into the civic issues they are supposed to address, right? So in these models, designers and so-called citizens are supposed to work hands in hand, right, and discuss the most appropriate solutions. All right, let me complete my review with civic study locations. So where do we find these kind of civic tech studies being conducted? Well, as you can expect, the well-assisted parts of the world still lead the civic tech development with a large margin. A vast majority of the studies came from the United States, accounting to about 42% of all the studies. UK and Europe follow closely and account for a combined 35% of the studies. Asian Pacific, right, including Australia, New Zealand, and other Asian countries, only contribute 13% in total of the studies. The rest of the world is almost negligible, right? So what can we learn from this finding? Basically, there are still lots of things that we can do in the Asian region or regions other than USA and Europe. Let me stop there and give you a quick summary of what I have just talked about. The academic studies in computer science discipline on civic tech has grown exponentially. There are multiple interests in different civic issues, but democracy and participation have been the most dominant one. There are also a variety of technologies used to support civic issues or civic interests, but we found that there seems to be missing more interactions or more mutual engagement across funders and partners. Depending on the participation mode, the study users and users can sometimes are not very well involved, or they can be more involved in the design of civic tech. Lastly, we hope to see that there might be more research from the global south, especially the Asian region, to be further developed.